Look back in hindsight, everything is 2020. In hindsight, we make mistakes, we're learning from it in hindsight.
Welcome to Hindsight the Podcast. I'm Lee Jones, your host. And look, what if years of pain and struggle could be undone in just a few hours? Today's guest, Richard Tierney. Tierney?
Yep.
Is the creator of a groundbreaking 12-step program built with the permission of Alcoholics Anonymous, designed to help people heal fully from trauma at its roots. His unique approach combines a focused healing event with a structured path to undo the habits and behaviors shaped by painful memories. And in this conversation, I hope that we're going to explore the connection between cause and effect and how reclaiming your past can free your future. Good morning, sir. Now, you just told me that you're from somewhere, so I don't even know if it's morning where you're at. Where are you calling in from today?
It's 10 p.m. at night. I'm from Ireland originally, but I'm living in Thailand. I've been here 20 years now in the north of Thailand, in a city called Chiang Mai. So I've been here now for 20 years. Yeah. It's a beautiful part of the world. It really is. Go on.
Oh, no, I appreciate you. I appreciate you staying up late to get on the show and talk with us today.
I'm really looking forward to this now. I love the word hindsight. I think it's a really fantastic way of looking at things. You know, I just like the word. And when I saw it on your podcast, I thought that's a podcast I have to get onto. So, thanks for having me.
All right. So, what got you over into Thailand? You said you're from Ireland. Now you're in Thailand. You know, this is hindsight. So, just give us a little history of who you are, really brief. Who you are, and I really want to know how you got to Thailand. That's a beautiful place that you were telling me about.
I'm afraid it's not a good story. I did the geographical. You know, when you can't live with yourself and life is horrible and everything about it is horrible. Yeah. And you have your nightmares and your flashbacks and you have your demons. And I didn't fit in with my family, and I couldn't form any healthy relationships with a woman. I couldn't have a relationship with myself, let alone any other person, you know. I was damaged. I was broken. And I couldn't see how I would survive living with my family because I didn't fit in anymore. They were no longer my tribe. I was so broken, I didn't feel like I fitted in anywhere. And so I was kind of waiting to find some way of leaving this world. I was trying to find some way. It wasn't that I wanted to die, I just didn't want to live. With the shame and self-loathing I had, I didn't want to live. I didn't want to be around people who knew me. I didn't want people to see me all broken. And I was doing my best wearing all these masks and pretending everything's fine. When inside, I was crumbling. You know, this massive hole in my soul. And people couldn't see the hole in my soul, but they could see how it manifested in my behavior. My sisters one time said to me, you used to see the anger and rage in my eyes, and they would scare them. And I thought I was doing a great job of wearing a mask and no one could see my pain. But my sisters could see such anger and rage in my eyes. And I was oblivious to this. I thought I was doing a great job of wearing a mask and not showing my pain to anybody. But both of them said on different occasions, we could see the anger in your eyes. You know, that's a frightening thing to hear from your sisters of anyone. You know, I never harmed anybody. I never really harmed anybody. But to hear your sisters say, my younger sisters, that they could see the anger in my eyes. I thought I was doing a great job of keeping a cap on everything and suppressing it all, you know. Yeah. So the first chance I got, I left for, it wasn't my intention to come to Thailand. I went to Australia for the millennium. Everyone's going somewhere for the millennium, going to New York or whatever it was. And a big number of Ireland went to Australia, and I had cousins in Australia. I go to Sydney for the millennium. They're going to have a big party and it'd be great fun. And it was a tremendous experience. But on the way back, I ended up stopping in Chiang Mai in northern Thailand. And I met a load of US veterans that had been in Korea and been in Vietnam. And when they got home to America, they hadn't settled in back into ordinary life. They really were broken and they really couldn't fit in, whatever. So they left their families and they came back out to Asia to try to find some way to be of service in Korea or be of service in Vietnam to give back for. And they weren't allowed really. The Vietnamese people, the Korean people didn't really accept them. And the one place they felt accepted they could be was in Thailand. So they came back to Thailand and they made Thailand their homes, and they did lots of volunteering at the time. There were these fantastic, strong veterans who wanted to give back to society. Wanted to give back where they felt they could do the work the most effective. So they came back to Asia and they set up here in northern Thailand. They went out to the hill tribes. They were doing all this fantastic work, and they bring me with them. And they were doing all the skills they'd learned in the army, electrical, whatever. They were doing this for the hill tribes, running water to go for the hill tribes. And just phenomenal stuff they're doing. And I got to be a part of that. I had no skills whatsoever. I'd hold a hammer, I'd hold it, this kind of stuff you felt a part of, and you felt some sense of. So that was really it. That's how I ended up in Chiang Mai. I fell in love with working and being around these people, and that kind of gave me the incentive to come. And if I was going to finish my life off, I'd finish it off here. They weren't my family, but they felt like my family. They were. And they were broken too, and they were trying to do something to feel whole.
Yeah. So, you know what? You said it wasn't a good story. Now I understand what you mean by the word good. I thought you just mean it wasn't a exciting or a thrilling type story, but you mean it's just straight up, it just wasn't a good thing, a good part of your life.
Well, it turned out exciting and thrilling. I mean, it was a wonderful experience, and a wonderful experience. But again, the reasons for it weren't good. I was in a bad space.
Yeah. So why were you wearing a mask? What broke you? Like, what do you believe, or was there nothing that happened?
At the age of 12, I was molested, and I don't want to trigger anybody on your audience. It destroyed me. I thought I must have given a signal. I must have done something to attract this person to me. It was all my fault, and I felt such shame and self-loathing that I had brought shame upon my family. And being a man, 12 years of age, but a man just meant to defend himself and stand up to this kind of stuff. And me letting it happen meant I was a big girl, and I was weak, and I was nothing, and it'd be a shame of my family. And I lived with that shame at the age of 12. So what actually happened for me was, as I grew up, I didn't grow mentally and emotionally. So when I got to the age of 27, I was a 27-year-old man with an inner child of a 12-year-old mentally and emotionally. So I tried to have a relationship with girls, but it was like a 12-year-old child trying to have an intimate relationship with a 27-year-old woman. It just wasn't possible. Any relationship I had, they were dealing with an inner child, not with a natural adult, because I was so broken. I stopped growing. I was afraid of growing, letting people see me. So I'd kind of stunted my growth. So I was in a really dark place, and I didn't tell anyone, not a sinner, not my parents, not my siblings, nobody, of this utter turmoil. I'd cry myself to sleep at night. I couldn't let anyone know the pain. And I didn't realize, if I'd known, you're meant to tell your parents because they brought you into this world and they love you and they'll do everything for you if you just tell them. I didn't know that. I thought I'd brought shame upon my family. I couldn't tell anybody. So that's really where I was coming from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to ask the question, did you have some support, or did they know? So you just explained that. So you carried this burden with you for so long. Do they know now? Or you just
my mother passed away, and I was in therapy, and they said you have to tell somebody. So my father was in his 80s, and he's near his deathbed. So I thought, I'll tell him on condition he doesn't tell anybody else, none of my siblings. So I met him one day, and I spoke to him, and I broke down. I told him what had happened, and he hugged me, and he told me that if he'd known, he would have bent over backwards to do anything he could have. That he was sorry that I couldn't trust him. And he cried as well, and we had a very emotional point. And he promised me he'd never tell anybody. And I believe he didn't tell anybody. So, and then none of my siblings knew until later on. I told my older brother, again, because it kind of came back to bite me again later on. I need to tell somebody. So I told my older brother and his wife, and they were very supportive. And then I dealt with it, and I created this program, and I did the program, and I let it go, and it was okay.
Okay, so I like to ask this question. Typically, I ask it at the end of the program or at the end of the conversation. But just hearing this story right now, if there was one thing, not even one thing, but if there was a something that you could have done differently in the past, right? What would you have done? Would you have included your family and let them know earlier?
No secrets, no secrets. As a child, children shouldn't think they have to keep secrets. Children should be nurtured to know that they can put their hand up and tell anybody whatever's going on, no matter how embarrassing it is. They must be brought up in a nurturing state. It's okay to tell your mum and dad what's going on. It's perfectly okay to let children know we love you dearly, and whatever happens to you, no matter whether you do it or somebody else does it, tell us. We won't hold it against you. You're our future. We care about you that deeply. So no secrets.
You sought out. I like that. So and that's hard as a kid. I mean, it's so young. And it is difficult to have those conversations. It's difficult to have a lot of conversations, even as an adult. It just is what it is, right? And the reason why I asked that question is for the listeners who are watching and who are listening. Get that out of you, because it's going to cripple you. You hear how 27 years old, you still was stuck in that moment. And I'm sure you deal with it now, but you're not stuck in that moment. So that's an important thing. Get it out, tell somebody, let somebody know. And don't try to carry that burden all by yourself. So great lesson. So I'm going to assume, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, that you went to you got some counseling, and you really developed, maybe based off of some things that you learned from counseling, this 12-step process to kind of work on yourself first.
I got counseling before I went anywhere near any 12-step programs. I had two of the most wonderful, caring, empathetic, kind therapists. An elderly lady, she was about maybe 20 years my senior, and there was a therapist who was about maybe 5 years my senior. Again, at that time, I was in my 30s, so I think this woman must have been in her 50s or 60s. She was my first therapist. I had her for about a year and a half, and she was phenomenal. She was the most caring, loving person. And then I had this guy, because I went to this men's group, so I had this chap who was my counselor. He was kind of part my counselor, and he, again, most loving, caring, open about, talking to your dad and that kind of stuff. He's the one who got me to talk to my dad. Really powerful. But I learned that, and it's a terrible thing to say, but I learned that they would listen to me because I was paying them to listen to me. If I ever ran out of money, they would drop me. And I don't mean that in any bad way. We're all trying to make a living. I charge for my services. If I take you to the program, I'm charging you a fee because I got 2 children to support and my wife, and I've got that, So it's not like we do this for free. We're all in business to make a living, to pay for our whatever. So I understood that if I turned around to my therapist and said, I can't pay you anymore, not they would have dropped me like a hot potato, but they would have said, sorry, I can't treat you if you can't pay me because I have to make a living. And they would have found somebody else. So I realized my family weren't getting paid to listen to me. So they just wouldn't listen to my crap. But a therapist who was being paid would sit there and listen to me bitch and moan and vent and complain for an hour every week, and nothing would change. And I'd get to come in, and I used to think, I wish my therapist was my mother or my father, because they really listened to me. In the early days, I thought this was a great thing, having 2 people who could listen to me. They must love me more than my parents. And I came to realize they're doing a job. I mean, nothing against them. Kind, empathetic, really wonderful therapists, but they're doing a job. I'm their customer, their client. And that was a huge awakening for me that I came across myself. And then my doctor had described medication for the depression I was having. But I remember one day I was walking down in my local town. I'm walking down the street, and back then there weren't very many immigrants or refugees around at that time in Ireland. This is going back, 40 years ago. It would be 40 years ago. I'm walking down the road going to work, and there's a woman on the side of the road holding a newborn baby, begging for money. And there's very few immigrants or refugees around. And I'm on my medication, so I'm oblivious to anything at all. I'm just like a zombie walking up and down to work and doing my day's work and not taking in anything. And as I'm walking along, there's a kind of a stop in the traffic, in the pedestrian traffic, and I can't move. And she grabs me by the trouser leg, and she pulls at my trouser leg saying, please help me. And I shake her hand off my leg and I walk on. No concern at all. I go to work, finish my day's work, I go home. That night the medication wears off. I felt such shame and self-loathing that I hadn't got an ounce of empathy for a woman with her baby on the side of the road. If that was my mother or my sister with a baby, I'd be horrified. And yet in that moment under the medication, I had no empathy for another human soul. And I felt so disgusted and ashamed of it. I went to my doctor the next day and said, I want to get off this medication. I felt I was losing my ability to be a human. And he said, no, he said, you can't go off it. So I went cold turkey. I told my brother that I need 10 days off to get off this medication. Don't tell my doctor, but I can't live like this. It's not living, it's enduring. So he arranged me 10 days off, and I stayed in bed for 10 days. It was the worst 10 days of my life, soul destroying, crazy, insane thoughts. But I was committed to getting off these drugs. I just didn't want to endure life. I wasn't living, I realized. I was enduring life. I didn't want to endure life where I wasn't feeling anything, where I was going through the motions. And so I went through 10 days of cold sweats, all that kind of stuff. Just not a nice picture at all to paint of a guy in bed for 10 days, not showering, not, just like eating in the bed, no changing sheets, like a real ugly picture of a slob, But I was just so determined to get off the medication. And I finally got off the medication. And the feeling was dreadful. Not having all this medication, having to deal with all my feelings and all my shame and self-loathing. It was horrific, but it was horrific in a really good way. Because the first time I felt alive in about 3 years. you know.
Okay.
There was some sense of, now I can do something about this, you know.
Yeah.
And it was that time I had entered into AA because I was a recovering alcoholic and a recovering company gambler, and I had a sponsor who took me through the 12 steps. And I learned that the 12 steps was probably the greatest gift given to mankind of the last century. It was a wonderful program for helping people to get their lives back on track by looking at them and not looking at everybody else. I blamed everybody else. I blamed my mother and my father and my abusers and society and God and everything else rather than me. And the 12 step says, no, we stop pointing the finger outside and we look at the 3 fingers pointing back. My feelings are my problem. My thinking is my problem. Not what Lee's doing to me, but what I think about what Lee's doing to me is my problem. And it was a huge revelation and an insight to see that. So I worked that program, and that helped to ease my mental, and I still had the problems with the trauma, but it helped me to get a better understanding and balance of things. And I came to see that I was suffering with a terrible state of hopelessness and a sense of inferiority, that the past had broken me and I wasn't really good enough to be in a relationship or whatever kind of thing. But I wasn't depressed and I wasn't having post-traumatic stress. I was having severe hopelessness and inferiority. And the manifestations of that hopelessness and inferiority expressed itself as PTSD, depression, anxiety, bipolar behaviors, throwing tantrums, angry, crying. But I was quite lucid during the days because I had these moments of these bouts of depression, these bouts of anxiety. So I felt to myself, I didn't have a depression disorder. I didn't have a post-traumatic stress disorder. I didn't have an anxiety disorder. I was quite lucid. I could do my day's work. And if I kept to myself and I didn't have to, I could manage my day and I could pay my way and drive my car and all kinds of. But there was moments I'd have nightmares, I'd have flashbacks, I'd have moments of depression. They were bouts of depression. There's a difference there. I actually wasn't mentally ill. I was actually quite lucid, but I had moments where I would lose it. And that was a great eye-opener realization that I wasn't mentally ill. I didn't have a mental disorder. I suffered with bouts of depression, but then I had bouts of lucid thinking. I had bouts of moments where I could have sheer joy at hearing a baby laughing or going fishing and catching a fish or playing golf, hitting a good golf shot. I could have moments of sheer joy in my life. It wasn't all depression and despair. And that gave me hope to realize I wasn't completely broken. There was a spark of life inside me. There was something that was keeping me, that gave me moments of joy. This idea of accepting I had a mental disorder meant my life was over. If I accept I have a mental disorder, then I'm in the system forever, dependent on the state, dependent on medication, dependent on therapy, and I can't be a part of life. So for me, it was a case of get away from the medication, find some solution. I like the 12-step program. Find some solution where I live my life one day at a time, focus only on today, not in the past, not in the future, just today. And that was the basis, the foundation to this program.
Yeah. So you describe, I'm putting words in your mouth, but you describe your program is focusing on cause and effect, right? So can you explain what that means in the context of trauma and mental health?
Okay. Well, science tells us it's all about cause and effect, that the cause is the problem and the effect is the effect. So the diagnosis, PTSD, depression, they're all the effects. That's all how the cause manifests in your life. So I see from your intro, you're a veteran. So what happened in the past to you is the cause. How that manifests in your life is the effect. But if we treat the effect and ignore the cause, there can be no hope of any healing, because the whole cause will always stay there festering in your mind, eating away at you. So the idea is, if you break your leg, let's say you break a leg, you go to a doctor. The doctor doesn't put your leg in a cast, doesn't tell you to take your weight off the leg, gives you some medication for pain and sends you back out walking with no crutches, no walking frame, no cast in your leg. Over time, your leg's going to get work, probably gangrenous and be cut off. If you go to a doctor and he puts your leg in a cast and he gets you to see your weight off the leg and gives you some medication, in 6 months, your leg mends and you can walk around fine. If we treat the cause, which is the past trauma memory, eventually, when you retreat the cause and it's gone from your psyche, you can now get rid of the effect. You no longer are affected by an event that is no longer in your life because you've given the cause away. So it's all about removing the cause from your psyche. And then once the cause is gone, you have no reason to suffer the effect. But if we treat the effect only, the cause is going to be doing press-ups in the background, getting worse and worse and worse and triggering you again and again and again, nightmares, more nightmares. And no matter how much you do on effects and treating the PTSD and the depression, if the cause is left in the background doing press-ups, it's going to come out and jump out at you one time and cause anarchy or chaos in your life.
Yeah, I definitely get that. A lot of times I believe that we focus on the symptoms, right? Or we focus on, but we're not really looking at the root cause. We're not really looking at just simply the cause of why it's there. So just understanding that, how is your program different from a traditional therapy or the original 12 steps of AA?
Okay. So first off, the AA program, 12 steps, there are now 14 12-step programs in the world.
Okay.
And my program is the 14th. There's been a number of people who have tried to do a 12-step program on trauma. And the main one was they replaced the word alcohol with trauma. And that's all they did. They just did the 12-step program, removed the word alcohol and put in the word trauma. But the 12-step program won't work because the AA program won't work because the first line of defense in AA is to abstain from the first drink or the first drug. But if we can learn to remove the cause, the psyche from our psyche, and it goes, there's no longer abstaining. Now it's a case of finding some other thing to do that's not abstaining. So we have to change the 12-step program slightly to focus on this. That's the idea behind it. So first of all, I needed to create a healing event that could get you to give the past back to your younger self. So Lee, can I ask you how old you are?
55.
55. Okay. And I imagine when you enlisted, you were maybe 18?
I was 20.
20. Okay. So what you want to do is, I want you to imagine you take out a sheet of paper. At the top, you write Lee Jones, okay, and you take a photograph of yourself. And on this page, you write an autobiography of who you are today. Not about what you're carrying from the past, but who you are today. So who's in your life? If you're married, children, your parents, your grandparents, your brothers, your sisters, who's still alive? Whether you live in the family home or you live in your own place now, where you live in a different part of the country. On a sheet of paper, you write down everything about Lee Jones today, okay? And then you get a second page and you put at the top of the page, 20-year-old LJ. So it's your younger self, okay? And then on that page, you put down everything about him. So maybe he lives in the family home, and where you're in California, his family home is in Nebraska, okay? And maybe your parents are dead, but his parents are alive. Maybe your grandparents, one of them is dead. One of them's alive, both of his grandparents are alive. And you give his autobiography, okay? So you have his autobiography here and your autobiography here, and a photograph of him on that page, and a photograph of you on this page. When you look at this, you can clearly see you're not the same person. You've got a whole life in the present in the year 2025. He's 30 years ago in 1995. Whatever that is, okay? And that's his life. And 30 years ago, so for me, I'm a 64-year-old man today. I'm living in Thailand with my wife, and my two children are in university. Both my parents are dead. All my grandparents are dead. And all of my aunts and uncles, bar one, is dead. And one of my 5 siblings died of leukemia, whatever it was, 40 years ago. And I'm living in Thailand. That 12-year-old child who suffered the trauma, he's living in the family home in Ireland. His parents are alive. His grandparents are alive. All his aunts and uncles are alive. And all his siblings are alive. One hasn't died of leukemia yet. He's going to school in the local school, and he's happy, joyous, and free. And his friends back then are different to my friends today. And his goals and aspirations are different to my goals and aspirations today. And what he's doing in school is different to me being a therapist today. So when I look at these pages, I can see that I'm not that 12-year-old child. And if I'm not that 12-year-old child, I can't be telling people I was abused in the past, because I'm a 64-year-old man. I only exist in these 24 hours, right here and right now. I've had my whole day here in Chiang Mai with my wife and my kids, and now I'm sitting at your podcast. I'm not a 12-year-old child 52 years ago. If someone came near me today about what happened to that child, I'd clobber them, so it wouldn't happen to me. I can't be in two places at once. If I'm sitting here with you, I can't say to you, I was abused 52 years ago, because I only exist in these 24 hours. And that's the truth. I look at my page with all my information on about who I am today, and this is who I am. And if this is who I am today, I can't be the person I was yesterday. I can't be the person I was 2 days ago. I saw the news that Charlie Kirk lost his life. 2 days ago, Charlie Kirk hadn't lost his life. And I would listen to Charlie Kirk. I love what he has to say himself, and Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson. I think they were fantastic voices to help people, you know? And now we've lost Charlie Kirk, but I know we've lost Charlie Kirk today. But 2 days ago, Charlie Kirk was alive. And so the person I was 2 days ago isn't the same person I am today. Because today I'm dealing with the fact that Charlie Kirk is no longer with us. And what's the world coming to? Whereas 2 days ago, Charlie Kirk was still alive and breathing. So we have to see that we're not the same person today that we were 2 days ago, last week, or in your case, 30 years ago, in my case, 50 years ago. And that's the truth behind this. We're being conditioned to think we have to process events that happened in the past. But the truth is, that 12-year-old version of me and that 20-year-old version of you never asked, wanted, or needed us to fight the battles for them or to carry their pain for them. They suffered, endured, survived, and overcame that trauma for us. And how do we know that? Because we're alive today. If they had been beaten by the trauma, they would have taken their lives and we wouldn't be in existence today. The fact that we have our existence today means that they defeated us. And if they defeated it, they don't need us to take it out of the grave and give life to it in the present. When we bring a dead thing from the past into our present, we bring the death, decay, and disease of that thing into our present, and it destroys everything it touches and everyone it touches. And look around you and see the number of relationships that's destroyed. Intimacy relationships with your partner or your friends, job opportunities been fired by your boss because you're bringing this baggage into your workplace, and it's causing terrible consternation with your work, with your staff, with your colleagues and your staff. And then in the home, you're going on about this event that happened in your past, and it's destroying your relationships. It's no business in the present. We have to give it back to our younger self. So the healing event is where I give this baggage back to the 12-year-old younger version of me. You'd give this back to the 20-year-old younger LJ. So if we call you Lee today, we call him LJ or some nickname you had back then. So for me, I'm Richard. He's Richie. I'm 64-year-old Richard. He's 12-year-old Richie. That's the idea of healing event. And what we do is we have this visualization where you see your younger self. So if you could close your eyes, you'd sit back and you imagine you see your younger self in the clouds, surrounded by a host of angels, looking down and saying to you, Lee, what the hell are you doing? I want to leave this plane of existence. It was a horrible place for me. I want to step into the light and meet our parents and our grandparents, but I can't go until I have all my baggage. Please let me go. Yeah. And then you make the decision of giving that baggage to him. You see him taking it off you and leaving this plane of existence. So it's a holistic spiritual experience the client goes through. They see themselves taking this baggage off their shoulders, taking it off their chest. They feel a weight off their body. And they imagine they're seeing them handing it up, the younger self taking it off them, cheerfully grabbing it, jumping around with joy, and then stepping into the light. And that moment, it leaves our psyche. We feel it, the release in our bodies mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Yeah. It's the thing we have to do ourselves. We have to let go of this. And the Bible says, let go and let God. It says that your life is meant to be in the present, in the I am. Not in the I was, not in the I will be, only in the I am. If we can live in the I am, we can have a life of abundance. But if we keep going back to the I was or fearing the I will be, we've no hope of being in the present. Eckhart Tolle says the power of now. Every spiritual help book says your life is in the present. Your meaning is in the present. Your purpose is in the present. Find a way of being in the present. And if you can visualize you giving all that baggage of the war back to young LJ and see him taking it from you, the release is quite beautiful. That takes about 2 hours. And then once that's gone from the picture, then we jump into the 12-step program.
Wow. That is unique. I like it. But we're talking right now, and this is just me coming from another perspective. We're talking right now. You're 64, happened when you were 12 years old. Like, when is a program like this, when does it make sense? Because we all heal mentally, physically, whatever, at our own pace. So for someone where this is fresh and it happened, like, I don't see this as being an option because you're still processing. So I'm just saying, like, length of time, like there's a lot of time between 12 and 30 or 12 and 27. Do you wish that you had done this earlier or come to this revelation earlier? And if you did, do you think it would have worked earlier for you?
For me, no, I wasn't mature enough to see this.
That's
I lived the life as a victim, and I loved being a victim. It was my safety go-to. I was a victim. I blamed everybody. I blamed God. If it was you, I blame you. Looked at me sideways. I'd be giving out about Lee Jones, looked at me sideways or something, or he wore the wrong colored shirt. I would look for a reason to be a victim in every single situation. So I don't think I was ready at the age of 20 or 30 or 40 or even 50. I remember my sponsor in AA said to me, "Isn't it time you let go of the past?" And I was furious. How the fuck? Sorry, excuse my language. Like I was effing and blind, and how dare you say I let go of the past? Don't you know I'm a victim and I suffered this horrible thing? And he said, it didn't happen to you. I'm kind of going, what do you mean? Like I was really furious with this guy, but it was the first man I'd allowed to get close to me in 30 years that I actually would share what had happened to me. And that's when you go into AA or one of these 12-step programs, you find another man for man, woman for woman. and you open up and you let a man, you see all your frailties, and you learn from him, and you copy what he did. It's like a mentor thing, And I knew I didn't want to throw away this mentoring. So I said I would listen to what he said and look at what it was. I think it was in my 50s at that time it finally came home to me that, yes, it didn't happen to me. It happened to a 12-year-old child. And that's when I really started getting into this thing of creating a program to let go of it. So I owe great gratitude to that man. But it's more about how we're conditioned. I think when we go into therapy, we're conditioned to always believe it's our responsibility to suffer our past. It's a part of our obligation to our younger self to suffer the past for them. And if you've been in therapy for a long time and on a lot of medication, it's very, very hard to suddenly. I worked with a person once who had been in therapy for over 20 years, had been with more than 20 therapists. And when they came to work with me, we did this process after the event, they were in utter shock because it worked. They'd given the past away, but they were in terrible turmoil because they had spent 30 years of their life being this victim of this trauma, and they couldn't give up their identity of what that meant. They were a member of all these support groups, and they were the chairperson of the group, and they were all this kind of stuff. And I got it completely. Very hard if you've created a life for yourself where you're part of a veteran group and you're the leader of the veteran group or whatever, and support groups, and you're supporting people and sponsoring people, and you're given this kind of stuff, and suddenly it's gone. There can be a terrible sense of loss in your identity, having to start all over, especially if you're in your 50s or 60s and suddenly someone says you're cured. Step back and stop being dependent on the state, get a job and start all over. What you do at 50 or 60 years of age and give out all that and try and start again from scratch? It's a really challenge for any age group. So whether you're 20 or you're 60, it's a challenge for every age group. It's really going to be down to if the person truly is sick and tired of living this way. Like myself, where I went into bed for 10 days and I got off the drugs, I was at the stage where I just didn't want to endure life this way. And it's down to that. So I've worked with about 105 clients, and of the 105, maybe 100 embraces completely. The other 5, it was too threatening for them, And again, I'm not saying they were failures or whatever. We're all where we are for a reason. It's not for me to say, you should be working faster, Lee, or you should be doing this better, or you should be, none of that crap. We're all on our own individual journey. But what I learned was that the statistics say that between 3 and 8% in every industry is a mistake. So in the world of mental disorders, there are 1 billion people diagnosed with mental disorders from past trauma memories, and between 30 and 80 million have been misdiagnosed. So I believe I was one of the 30, 80 million that were misdiagnosed. So for me, it was really good for me to stop doing the medication because I just knew it wasn't working for me. I knew I must have been misdiagnosed. I think I knew that in my heart and in my bones that I must have been misdiagnosed, that I suffered hopelessness, inferiority. I didn't have a mental disorder. I wasn't mentally ill. I was doing a lot of crazy shit and this kind of stuff, but being crazy and being mad, I think, are two slightly different things. I wasn't clinically insane. I wasn't mad. I had my crazy moments. I had my nightmares and my flashbacks, and I had my moments of tantrums and grief and depression. But I wasn't clinically insane. I think I had that understanding that I was misdiagnosed. And 80 million people in 1 billion people, they could be all over the world. You might only meet 5 people in your lifetime who may have been misdiagnosed. Everyone else is fully diagnosed with the correct condition. So what I was told was that if you're in therapy for multiple years, more than 1 year, multiple years, or been more than one therapist, chances are you've been misdiagnosed. Because if this worked, the first therapist you come with, the first medication you're given, that should work. That should give you some semblance of a natural life. But if you're jumping from therapist to therapist, therapy from therapy, medication from medication, then someone's missed out on the obvious. Someone's treating you for a mental disorder when you have a spiritual malady.
Yeah. Interesting. I remember reading, actually, I was listening to an audiobook, and some of the things that you're saying right now hit home. And what struck me was when I read the beginning of the book, which before you even got to the first chapter, it talked about how by the time you finished this book, or by the time you're reading this book, I think is what it said, I will be gone. The writer, I will be gone. And what they were conveying, I say, oh man, they must be writing this while they're sick. And what they're saying is that we change physically. To your point, writing the biography of years back then, you were a totally different person. Your cells change over, your skin falls off and change over, right? So you're a totally different person. They talked about someone who was convicted of a crime when they were young, and it came time to get paroled, and they were arguing that they were a really completely totally different person.
Yeah.
They had been in jail for a while, right? So just understanding now, putting that mental part into it, trying to find a way to not stay stuck and continuing to fight that battle, continuing to grieve or to understand or to come to grips with is interesting, right? To do it. And I know it's hard. So like you say, it's a 2-hour event or a 3-hour event that you do. That's just one part of your healing process, right? For someone, like how does this work? I know it has to take some time, but I think that is the catalyst to start to move away and become the person who you are now, right? But still, how long does this usually work with you?
Well, like you said, once we can come to realize that we're not the same person, that's really, when I work with a client, I try to explain to the client as clearly as possible. We do that 2 sheets of paper, the 2 people, okay? And then we look at the science about the fact that your physical body changes every 7 years. Every 7 years, all the cells die and they're all replaced. Of every bone, every flesh, every vein, everything in your body changes. So we can't say this is the body that was abused at the age of 12 because 50 years has passed. That's 4 lifetimes of 4 different bodies or 5 different bodies. So it's not the same body for starters, okay? And what tends to happen is we keep all our memories and our soul carries the whole in our soul. Whatever happens to us, good or bad, is stored in our soul. So the good memories, put a smile on our face, give us full of joy, is in our soul. But then also the despair and the hurt and the pain that's caused us to be a victim, that eats away in our soul. That's where it is. Now, if you can get to an understanding of God, I'm not a member of any religion. I'm not a member of any denomination. I was raised as Roman Catholic, became disillusioned with it, left it, tried to find another religion because I felt I had to be a member of a denomination. Tried Baptist, tried Jehovah, tried Protestant, Anglican, Presbyterian. None of them worked for me. They all felt like it was all man-made. There was too many man-made rules. I just wanted to be able to claim my miracle. I wanted to be able to claim my miracle. And that's what I went. So I got my Bible out and I got someone to teach me about the Bible, about the New Testament, about Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and Jesus and Christ. And that's where my faith is knowing that I'm allowed to claim a miracle in any day. Now, I'm not talking about raising the dead or helping the lame walk. But I used to think if someone could give me 5 minutes of peace of mind, that for me would have been a miracle. So I learned how to claim up to 24 hours a day of a miracle of peace of mind. So I learned this practice, a really wonderful practice, and it's a prayer practice where I can claim 8 hours of sleep at nighttime with no nightmares, no flashbacks, no triggers. I do this prayer, I lay it down, and I get 8 hours like a log. No nightmares, no flashbacks, no triggers. I wake up in the morning, 8 hours later, and for the first time in my life, of 60, whatever it was, 54 years, I had no nightmares, no flashbacks, no triggers. It was the most beautiful moment ever. I use this every single night, and every night I get a night of no nightmares, no flashbacks. And then I realized if I can have 8 hours at nighttime, then I'm only left with 16 hours to live with. 8 hours of work and 8 hours of play. And if he gives me 8 hours at nighttime, I can ask him to give me this 1 hour from 6 to 7, and then give me an hour from 7 to 8, and then maybe go from 8 to my morning break at 11 o'clock, and then go from 11 o'clock to my lunch at 1 o'clock, and then give me from 1 o'clock until 4 o'clock at the afternoon break, and then from 4 o'clock to the commute home at 5:30, and then the commute journey from 5:30 to 7 o'clock to get home, and then 2 hours in the evening around my family, and then I'll go for a walk for an hour, and then I'll come back and I'll do the same thing again. So I keep it down to 16-hour days. And that's how I live my life. I don't think about the past or the future because I've given the past to God and the future to God. I only have to deal with 16 hours a day. And I have peace of mind. So but there's a number of things that have to come into it. First of all, I do believe you need to find a way of allowing yourself to have a relationship with God. And you don't have to join a religion. You don't have to join any denomination. The Bible says go into your bedroom, lock the door, close the curtains, climb into your wardrobe, close the door, and in secret, give me your crap. And that's basically what you're doing. You're saying, okay, God, here's all my baggage. Take it from me for 8 hours and give me 8 hours sleep. Then climb out of the closet, take your list, bring it into the toilet, burn it, flush it down the toilet. You make a burnt offering, flush it so it leaves your psyche, lay in your bed, and you get 8 hours of peaceful sleep. You wake up this morning kind of going, I can do this. And it's that simple. But then also you have to learn about forgiveness and forgetfulness. That's another big part of it. so many of us are tied to the idea of seeking vengeance and justice.
Mhm.
But the idea of letting God your life, in the Bible, it says that if you give your wrath and your anger to God, he will make your abusers pay their price. But if you seek vengeance and justice on this earth, when they die, they'll go to heaven. So it's like, it's frightening. If you seek vengeance and justice on this earth and you don't get it, your abuser will get to go to heaven. But if you give your anger and wrath today to God and say, I forgive my abuser, I wish him well, I hope he has a fantastic life on this earth, when he dies, he'll go to hell. There's a catch in that. You have to give to God. So that's a big part of it. And if the client can see that and understand that, I get them to read the Bible or whatever, but if they see this, and so you have to understand, if the Bible's either a book of truth or a book of lies. And this is what I say, if it's either a book of truth, if it's a book of lies, then don't listen to me. If it's a book of truths, and you know it's a book of truth because the scientists and archaeologists have proven that every word of the Bible is true, well, then this says that if you give your anger to me, you can have peace of mind today. No one else will be able to press your triggers again. And I will put upon them the fires of hell for themselves and 7 generations of their family. And that moment you're able to forgive and let go. And then you do the thing of where you do the letter, you give it to God, you let it go. And then you have to do a practice of giving the actual baggage back. And that's that whole holistic practice where you see yourself taking the baggage and saying, okay, young Richie, here's the baggage. And he takes it saying, thanks, Richard. And he steps into light. So it's kind of a combination of those 3 together at one time. So it only takes 2 hours to do that. But it's, again, I can't fix or save you, Lee. You have to make the decision for yourself that you agree with this, that this makes sense to you, and you're willing to give it a try. And then when you're willing to give it a try, you find 2 hours later, you feel the release in your body. And again, I don't tell you you're healed. I do an exercise where I get you to draw a graph before we start. And then you review the graph and you see where your score is. And you can see by the score that you put down at the beginning, the shift in your score as how much you've been healed in it. So it's you healing you. I can't heal you.
Yeah. I understand that for sure. Hey, so, all right, I'm going to take it back. It's hindsight. Just a little bit. Not too far back. Just a little bit.
Go ahead. Yeah. It's a lot to take in. So, yeah, go ahead.
No, so victim mentality, being a victim. You said you were a victim for a long time. You were comfortable in that. You were comfortable in that space. What got you uncomfortable in that space enough to make you want to change?
I never had a moment of feeling uncomfortable.
And let me ask one further up question. I think I might have forgot it. So uncomfortable. You said you don't feel uncomfortable. God, I had it right there because it's something. Anyway, go ahead. I'll interrupt you again when I remember.
Okay, that's okay. When I was challenged by my sponsor, and he said it's time to let that go. So I was never. Even today, I find myself going to being a victim. Even today, I find myself, when I'm feeling anyway threatened or down, I imagine someone's done something wrong to me. I kind of go, Lee's going to fucking, Lee's not going to post this. You think I'm a weirdo? He won't post this, the fecker. And I start being a victim about Lee's not posting this. And I can go there very easy. My wife does something, looks at me sideways, and I can kind of go, the dirty feckin' so-and-so, she's out for a fight or something. It's my nature to be a victim. So I have to work on this every single day, because my nature, if I leave myself to my old ways, I go to victimhood in a second. I can go to depression in a second, but it can take me an hour to get happy, joyous, and free. It's hard work. It's not easy. I lived for 50 years of my life being a victim. It may take 50 years of my life never to be a victim again. I'm going to have ups and downs. The one thing I try and do is I can have moments where I stall, where I don't allow myself to go back. I don't go back to being a victim. Even when I come close to it, okay, but okay, you can stop for a minute. Stay in bed if you have to. Have a day and eat crisps and chocolate and 5 sodas or something, whatever. If I was drinking, have a drink. I don't drink, but if I have to do something to act out in the day, I'm going to act out, but I'm not going back to my old self. It's okay to stop. It's okay to freeze. It's okay to stay in bed. It's okay not go to work and make an excuse and stay at home, but I'm not going backwards. I may allow myself to stop. I may allow myself to freeze. I may allow myself to run away, but then I'll get back on my horse and I'll go again. And maybe baby steps for a while, but I'm never going backwards. So it wasn't the case I ever felt uncomfortable. I loved being a victim. It's my most comfortable place. And if I go walking with a dog, I have this thing now when I go walking, my wife's dog comes with me. I bring her for short walks. I give him all my crap. Whatever's in my head, I kind of go, okay, Muffin, here you are. And I spew at Muffin everything in my head. This is going on with Bo, and this is going on with the kids, this is going on with the driver in the car. And I just give him everything, and he's doing peas and poos, ignoring me, but I feel as though I've been heard. And then it's out of my head, so I got the freedom. Same with writing that letter and flushing it down the toilet. If I put down a paper, it's out of my head, and I can have peace of mind. So and I know I have moments of craziness, so I have to do this every single day if I'm going to remain some form of sane. But I love this life. My nightmares and my flashbacks are gone. I've made peace with the past. I've given it back to my younger self. I don't have nightmares or flashbacks about the past. I have some flashbacks about things I've done in the past weeks, months, or years. I cringe about trying to be a parent and saying the wrong thing to my daughter. And she kind of goes, that's inappropriate, Dad. And I'm kind of going, like, cringing, like, no, why did I say that? I thought it was being funny, or something, silly things you do, you forget you're a dad and you say something teasing your daughter and she takes offense and you're kind of, God, that's going to take a week to fix that, and I cringe about those. And I have those moments, I kind of cringe, kind of go, oh, I remember doing that to Karina, saying that to Karina or something. Nothing bad, like, just, you say it to your son and he laughs. You say it to your daughter and she takes higher offense, she's going through puberty. And it's like, that wasn't all that funny with you, in hindsight. But, so this kind of stuff. So I never felt uncomfortable with my victim feeling, because I still have it to this day. But when I was challenged to stop being a victim, that was when everything changed for me.
When did you know, so when you were, did you know you were in a victim state? Because a lot of people, I don't think they know. I just think they operate in that space because, like you said, it's comfortable. It's easier to blame everybody else instead of really face what it is that you should face, right?
I believe I was conditioned into it. Unfortunately, when my brother, I think it was my twin brother, died at birth, and I was the surviving child, and my father was a countryman, didn't know how to really grieve properly. So basically, my mother was given carte blanche to do anything to want with me, to be her comfort blanket, and so I got treated extra special from all the other children. I could do no wrong. I got extra pocket money and extra treats and this kind of stuff. I never got to grow like my brothers and my sisters, where you learn boundaries and help boundaries. I was allowed to get away with everything. I could do no wrong. I could take extra extra sweets, extra candy. If I spend my pocket money, I get more pocket money. So I never learned about any boundaries. So, and then my father really got very upset with me because I wasn't going into a man. I was being like a big girl in a child, like a really immature, spoiled child, and he allowed Mammy to use me as his comfort blanket, so he couldn't police me and he couldn't parent me. So I grew up as a very dysfunctional child, and from the word go, I was a victim. I didn't think I was like my brothers, and I think it was too much like my sisters, and I hated being always in the house with the girls. And my mum was afraid of anything happened to me because she'd lost a child, so she didn't want anything to happen to me. So she kept me by her skirts all the time at the kitchen, not letting me out playing with the boys in case I got hurt. So I learned to be a victim. That was kind of the role that I think my mother, without intending it, created for me. And it was just natural. It was a great place to be because I got all the attention. And if I fell over, Mum would expect me to cry because I fell over, and then she'd give me these hugs and this and give me treats and all this. I think I was conditioned into being a victim. Now, I don't blame my mother, but I think I was as a child conditioned. But then once I became a victim, I went with it. And I just loved that place. and so I can't blame my mum forever, because I was the one who played the role of a victim for the next 20 or 30 years,
Yeah, I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate that. That puts some stuff in context. You you see that a lot though. When you look at kids and you look at the mom and dad types of, I guess, expectations of what they should do. Moms are going to be more caring. They want to make sure that you're okay. Dads, and this is all just generalization, because obviously anybody can do anything.
I'm not throwing stones at my parents. My parents did the best they could. Even myself today, I think to myself, God, I think my kids are going to look for a therapist after having me as a father. And
I think of that too. Because you do the best that you can. We're not qualified
parents. We're doing the best we can, but no one trains us to be a parent. I love the thing about my daughter today is 21 years. Is it 21 years, 9 months, and 18 days old? I've never had a 21-year-old, 9 months, and 18-day-old daughter before. I've had a 21 years, 9 months, and 17 days old daughter yesterday.
Yeah.
But I've never had a 21, 9 months, and 18-day-old daughter today. It's a new experience, and I'm going to mess up somewhere because I've never had the experience before.
I like that,
and that's kind of thing, So that's, you have to take into account that my parents
having
did
that
the best
understanding. Yeah, yeah, I
My parents
love
did the
it.
best they could. I wouldn't throw stones at my parents. They did the best they could. They were middle class. They tried to give us everything. And the
Yeah,
fact that they failed in certain areas, they didn't do it intentionally. And
yeah,
that's why you
yeah.
can't throw stones at your parents,
All right, all right. So for the listeners who may not yet be ready for a full healing event, what's one step they can take today to start addressing past pain?
Well, there's three things. There's four things I share with my clients when we come to the end of a program or I'm working with a client. The first one is understand that your family of origin may not be your tribe. The family you're in right now and the people around you in your
True.
workplace may not be your tribe. There's nothing wrong with them. They're perfect for each other. You just don't fit in. So if you're a veteran and you came back from the wars and you're trying to fit in with normal people, you may find that the only place you felt comfortable was with your buddies. And you're back with your family and your family love you dearly, but you're not the same. You just don't fit in. There's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with you. You're just not in your right tribe. But when you find your tribe, you'll feel great. So I was an introvert. I was a victim. And my family were very outgoing, social animals, very big into business and success and competition, and very big social animals. And I didn't fit in. I really tried. I used alcohol and I used other things. And it was so hard for me to try and fit in a social gathering and be smiling and happy when I didn't want to be anywhere near it. I wanted to be in my own little space with my books, whatever. And it was a horrible way to live as a child. I didn't know I was in my wrong tribe. My family of origin weren't my tribe. That's the first thing. So find your tribe. And if it means going back into the army and enlisting again and asking to be left on the base and not to go off to war, but left on the base, like work in the canteen or somewhere in the office, can you go back into the army and be on base? You can be with your tribe. You do that. You find your tribe, and that's who your tribe is. There's one of our 12-step support groups. Maybe go to a 12 support group and try and meet fellows there that be your tribe that deal with codependency or to deal with whatever it is, and work with them and find out how to be around people. So if you're a nerd and a geek and you're a gamer, you find other nerd, geeks, and gamers. So that's the first thing. Find your tribe. If you can find your tribe, everything changes. No longer wearing masks, no longer people pleasing. You fit right in just as you are. The second one is to understand that we're never victims. So if my wife wanted to divorce me tomorrow, she's not divorcing me because she hates me. She's divorcing me because I'm not matching up to her needs, and she needs someone to fulfill her needs, and I'm not able to do it. She's going to try and find somebody else to fulfill her needs. If my boss wants to fire me today, he's not firing me because he doesn't like me, because he employed me in the first place. He needed me to do a job for him, and I'm not doing it. So he needs to find someone to do the job, and to do that, he has to remove me to put someone else in my place. So I'm not the victim. In any situation, if for any reason Lee decides I'm crazy, he's not posting this video, it's not about him not liking me. It's about him doing the best for his audience. So I'm never the victim. In any situation, I'm not the victim. And if you can get that into your psyche, that whatever's going on in life, don't allow yourself to be the victim or the martyr. Whatever's going on, it's other people doing their thing for their benefit. So I had a falling out with my brother over money. I thought he was doing it against me, and I realized he's looking after his wife and children. He's doing the best decision for him, for his wife and his children, not about me. Nothing to do with me. I'm looking for the best for my wife and children. He's looking for the best for his wife and children. But that's just where you were. And when you learn to look at life like that, everything will improve. And the third thing is to understand the concept of a higher power. So Lee Jones' podcast here is a higher power. You get to listen to people from different walks of life, like myself, and what I say to you may resonate with you, or it may be crazy and you steer far clear of me, or you look what I say and you embrace my teachings. Lee Jones is bringing to you different perspectives that'll help you in your journey, and so on. Okay, you go onto YouTube and there's so many different speakers and audio files and videos. You can there's TikTok, there's Spotify. You go down to your local library. The amount of resources in libraries is phenomenal. We don't tap into it. There's audios and videos in libraries. There's all your books, and then you can go to the social services and you get whatever you need from social services, whatever. So you always have a higher power. And in my case, when my head is crazy, I'll take the dog for a walk and I'll jump on my dog. He doesn't know what I'm saying. He's doing his pees and poos. I'll vent and dump on him and I'll come back feeling better. I'll flush it down the toilet like I did with the letter, tell God what my trouble is, write it on a bit of paper, burn it, flush it down the toilet, let it go and scuff my psyche, and I get 8 hours of peace of mind. Or one time my wife just had, my son was born, but I had to go back to Ireland for business. I'm in Thailand. And I hated going home, but I had to go home for business with my brother. So I had to fly back. And I was at Singapore airport. My head was crazy. And there was this Japanese guy sitting down reading his paper. And I went over and said, "Can I talk to you?" And he looked at me kind of going, saying, "Yes." And I don't get any English. And I spewed my stuff at him for like 10 minutes. And he went, I have my flight. And he walked away. And I felt such relief. I'd been heard. Now, he probably didn't understand a word I said, but the fact that I got to give it to somebody was a huge help for me. Okay. So allow yourself to find a higher power. There was a time in my early days in Ireland, I used to hug trees, and I talked to the tree. I'm hugging this big oak tree in this field. I'm talking to the fucking tree. Anyone saw me, thought I'd be a lunatic. I'd make sure no one saw me. But I'd hold this tree, I'd be talking to this oak tree or ash tree or whatever, and then I'd put away from it, I'd feel good. Whatever works for you, allow yourself to have a higher power, whatever it is, okay? And the final one is, you have to decide whether the God is real or not. You have to make a decision for yourself. Don't listen to priests or pastors or ministers or your buddies. You decide for yourself. And you can do all these find out from archaeologists. Lately, it was on the news last week, archaeologists found the city of Gomorrah, Sodom and Gomorrah.
Oh.
They'd never found it. They went out searching for it, and they found the location in the Bible. They went looking for it. And they went into the desert, and they dusted off all the sand, and the walls, like, were about 8 feet wide or something. They found the walls of this Sodom and Gomorrah the same way they found the walls of Jericho. This place actually existed. They found everything inside that was described in the Bible exactly as it was, the size of the city, whatever. So they started to find things that were true, that were in the Bible, that no other place in history had them. So again, once you can find that the Bible is true, then you find a way of having a relationship with God. But again, I don't do church. I love churches. I love sitting in a church. I think, and certainly no one's around sitting there. There's wonderful energy. But I'm not a member of any religion. I'm not a member of any denomination. But I sit and I give God my rubbish every night for 8 hours of peaceful sleep. And I give him my rubbish during the day. So I'm going for a date before I got married, or I'm going for an interview, or I've got something on, I'm meeting Lee tonight. I say, God, please give me 1 hour where I'm sane while I'm with Lee, so I speak slowly and clearly, and I give some hope to somebody. And I come into my chat with Lee, and I think I've nailed it. And I thank God afterwards. That kind of thing. So they're the 4 things.
Yeah.
I hope they help you all.
Yeah. Thank you so much. No, that really helped. That really helped me as well. So, Richard, in the interest of time, first of all, thank you. But how can people connect with you and learn more about your program?
Okay, the 2-part program is available only on Amazon. The 2-hour healing event is called Healing Any Trauma Memory. And then the 12-step program is called Trauma Recovery Anonymous. They're both available on the Amazon platform. I can be contacted at richard@traumarecoveryanonymous.com. In case you'd like me to take you through the process, I can. If you're uncomfortable coming on your own, you can either bring a concerned person along with you, or if you're there with 2 or 3 buddies who are maybe your 3 buddies and you'd like to do this, you don't do it on your own. You can do it on Zoom. You can be in your 3 different homes at one time, where you can sit together and do this session together. I'll take the 3 of you to it. I can take up to 20 people through the session at one time, which is so it means you have your buddies around you working together, and you can see the effects of this program on each of you at the end of it. So you can talk about it afterwards. It's a really cool way. And then what I do then is, after the session, I'll take you on the 12 steps over 12 weeks. So again, we just reinforce the 12 steps, and then you're free to go about your life. Okay. So
right.
Lee, thank you very much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. In today's conversation with Richard, Tierney reminded us that healing doesn't always have to take years. It can begin in just a few intentional hours. We explored the idea of cause and effect, how trauma shapes behavior, and what it means to truly reclaim your story. Richard, once again, I want to thank you for sharing your vision and your heart and your experiences with us today. It was definitely impactful to me.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. And for everyone listening, don't forget to subscribe to Hindsight the Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you listen, and share this episode with someone who may need to hear that healing is possible. And remember, your past is not your prison. I'll see you next time.
I like that. Thank you, Lee. Thank you all.
Thanks, Richard. All right.
That was great, Lee.
Hey, thanks for joining me here on Hindsight the Podcast. I'm your host, Lee Jones. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know I did. And while I have you here, why don't you take your mouse, go over and click on that subscribe button. No, not right there. Over to the right. No, down, right there. Boom. Thank you. Now, thank you for subscribing to Hindsight the Podcast. I'm your host, Lee Jones.